I'm just noticing you're drinking water. You don't think that could be a cause and effect, Allison? I'm just speculating. Okay, here we go. Wow, that's going to be on YouTube. Everyone's going to wonder who Allison is. Section 1.1, Part 2, Adaptations. What are adaptations? These are characteristics that enable organisms to better survive, and what all life wants to do, reproduce, pass on their next generation. If you survive, but your species doesn't have any kids, you go extinct in one generation. And there are three main types of adaptations. There are what we call, oh, you know what? Put a little star. This would be a good multiple choice and or test question. What are the three types of adaptation? These are the kinds of things the provincial loves to ask. What are the three main types? There are what we call structural. Mr. Dueck, does that come from the word structure? Yeah. Will that help me remember what it means? Yeah, and we'll talk about what it means in a second. There are physiological. And there are behavioral adaptations. I think all of you know what the word behave means. So behavioral, that's when an animal changes how it acts, how it behaves. Structural and physiological, unfortunately, kind of in my mind almost mean the same thing. They don't, so I'll try and give you ways to keep them straight. What are structural adaptations? Structural adaptations are on the outside. Oh, like the structure of a house. When I talk about the structure of a house, am I talking about the furniture or am I talking about the outside? The outside. Okay? This is a physical feature of an organism's body. And it's having a specific function that contributes to their survival. Okay, good example, our favorite birds, penguins. Okay? Emperor penguins are a very good example. They have, first of all, on the outside, 4 layers of scale-like feathers. They are feathers, but since they swim a lot, they don't necessarily look like the kind of feathers that birds have that travel through the air a lot. These layers overlap each other, and these form a good protection from the wind, even in blizzard conditions. Another great example of a structural adaptation, porcupines. What would the structural adaptation be? Quills. Okay? An Arctic fox has thick white fur in the winter, brownish gray fur in the summer. Why would you want white fur in the winter? Snow. Okay? Why would you not want white fur in the summer? You'd be standing out then in the, okay? There are many, many, many examples of structural adaptations. Most birds' beaks are almost always some type of unique structural adaptation to match their particular source of food, especially in the tropics. Okay? Butterfly wings to help them fly, all sorts of structural adaptations. So how do I remember that structures are on the outside? Because when I look at the structure of a house, I'm not talking about the living room furniture, I'm talking about the outside. What about physiological adaptations? This is a physical or chemical event that occurs inside the body of an organism that enables survival. For example, wolves can maintain a constant body temperature to survive in both colder and warmer climates. Or there are some cactuses, except the plural of cactus is cacti. They only require about half the amount of water compared to regular plants in order to undergo photosynthesis. That's on their inside. Their structure is different on the inside. Okay. Cows have multiple stomachs to help them digest the grass that they eat. That's an internal physiological adaptation, not an external outward adaptation. So other examples, cows with multiple stomachs I forget how many stomachs a cow has, but more than one. Pardon me? I think it's 4. Farmers would know. Okay? That's because grass is pretty tough to digest, so it passes it from stomach to stomach. And each stomach has a different set of acids and enzymes to help break it down. Think of any others? Think stuff that changes on the inside of animals or plants to help them survive. Any other suggestions? Yeah.
There's like the frog or something that stops its heart, so it slowly turns down in the winter and freezes.
We're gonna classify that because that's actually changing how its heart behaves, but it hasn't grown a second heart or a third heart. That's actually going to come under behavioral, believe it or not. Hibernation is going to be a great example of a behavioral adaptation. Yep.
Caterpillar getting
That I think, but I got to double check exactly because there's some that kind of have some overlaps, and I'm going to avoid those ones. If I ask you them, they'll be very clear on the test. Okay. So cow, yep, definitely, yep.
There's some geckos that can let their tail fall off to get away from
Although I'm not sure if that's physiological, internal, or structural. I think that might be structural because it's outside the body. So there's kind of some gray overlap. So again, I'll make sure if I ask you stuff on the test, Courtney, it'll be pretty clear, pretty obvious. There's also behavioral adaptations, and Sage, this is your segue actually. This is what an organism does, or hey, how it behaves, in order to survive in the unique conditions of its environment. A great example is migration. That's a behavioral change, right? Didn't grow something different inside. It hasn't evolved a different set of wings. No, it's moving. Or another great example even is something as simple as bird calls. Why do birds sing? So that they can attract a mate, and they all have different songs so that they can identify, oh, that's a species that I'm not going to mate with, that's a species that I will mate with. Okay. The burrowing owl, it turns out, can hiss like a snake to scare off predators. That's a behavioral change, a behavioral adaptation. And your example, hibernation in the winter. Okay. Those are all examples of behavioral adaptations. That's it. Really short? Yeah, I couldn't quite fit that in the very first lesson. It was going a little over time. So what's your homework? If you haven't completed the biome map yet, make sure you get that colored. The pencil crayons are sitting on this cart right here. But what we're going to probably spend the most time on are these next two. Bear with me. So this is the first thing I would like you to work on. Make sure someone at each table at least can access page 30. Open your textbooks, please, to page 30. And what you're going to do here is you're going to analyze a climatograph, and then you're going to draw one of your own. So you can do this with a partner, or you can do this on your own, but each of you is going to turn in an assignment. So it says this, blah, 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 procedure. Question, how can you use the information? I'm not going to have you do this as a formal lab write-up. This is more of an activity. So this is climatograph A, and it says, working with a partner, answer the following questions. I gave you a piece of graph paper, yes? You can answer these on the back of that piece of graph paper if you want, and hand it all in one assignment. So 1A says, what information is on the left-hand vertical y-axis? That's this one here, I think average precipitation in millimeters. What's with the letters? Well, what do you think Jason stands for? Months, okay? And then what are the, you can answer those pretty easy. Then it's going to start asking you to interpret this. So the dots, the dotted part, that's the temperature. The bars are the rainfall. How can you keep straight which one is which? I imagine that the bars are like buckets of rain being filled, and that's how deep the water got. That's how I remember that it's the bars, not the dots. Whatever works for you, Taylor. My brain works weird, and my system might not work for you. Okay? Then you're going to construct your own. And this is why I gave you all graph paper. So on the graph paper, you're going to, along the bottom, put Jason. Okay? You can decide on your graph paper, your sheet looks like this. How many sheets across, how many squares across is it? Can you count for me, somebody? Quick. Matt, you with me? You're not looking at your phone or anything foolish like that? I think what I would do, probably, Allison, so it's not so crowded, is I think it'll fit, well, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. Yeah, it'll fit totally. I think what I would do is I would let every 2 squares be 1 month. In other words, you can try going January, February, March. I think that's going to be really crowded and tough to read. I think what I would do is, first of all, I would do this along the bottom somewhere using a ruler. I'm going to freehand it terribly. I would probably go, that's January, that's February, that's March, that's April. Every 2 squares. It'll be way easier to read. Does that make sense? On the y-axis here, you're going to do temperature. Let's go back and look at this handout, or this page. Oh, right here. Not temperature, precipitation goes on the left side, and the instructions walk you through it. So it says on the graph paper, mark 12 intervals. Label each interval with the first letter of a month, starting with J for January. On the left vertical axis, 10 intervals beginning at 0 and extending to 100. Again, on your graph paper, I don't think I would go like this. 10, 20, 30. I think I would probably have every 2 squares. So I would probably go 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. Neater than I'm drawing, but I think that'll be easier to, you don't want it squashed together. What's the next step that it says to do? On the other side? So over here, wherever it is, I'll draw my second one. And from what to what? From -10 to 25. I would probably here -10 to 25. That's a total of 35 squares. There you might have to go up by 1s. Okay? Or what do they go up by on there? Oh, you know what? You could probably go up by 2s if you really wanted to, but something like that. Okay? This make sense so far? Then you're going to graph this very, very carefully. You're going to graph this. Okay? Present the data. Use a blue pencil to shade in the bar graph. I got pencil crayons here. Use a red pencil to draw the curve. Add the title, Climatograph B. And then you're going to answer part 3 on the back of the graph paper as well. It says compare the ones. So answer question 9 and answer 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay? Then you can try the conclude and apply. You can answer these questions on a separate piece of paper if you want to, Courtney, or on the back of the graph paper. Does that make sense, folks? I'm not sure people follow it, but I think so. So, homework. That is the page 30 activity. See Mr. Dueck for graph paper. I gave you graph paper. If you botch it, I have more. If you want rulers, I think behind Julie on the counter, is there a stack of rulers there? Or maybe it's not there anymore. Let me go look. Any questions on all the homework? Okay. This is, again, a different style of studying. And for those of you guys that like to memorize, you'll eat this right up. This is not my forte, but that's okay. Folks, I'm going to shut up. You have the rest of class to get all this and any other missing NHIs or assignments done. Also, if I screwed up, if you noticed any mistakes in the email that I sent home on the weekend, make sure that you talk to me and I will fix your assignments.
Mr. Dueck, negative 1.